Hey there, and welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabrielle Nicolay. I am a speech therapist, a toddler whisperer, and a parent coach. And today I am joined by Caroline Turner. Caroline, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with y'all.
I am so excited. Today we are talking about Quirky Buds. But before we do that, I want you to tell the good people something about yourself and set the stage for us.
Love it. Happy to. So, my name is Caroline and I'm a social worker by trade. I actually got my master's degree at the University of Texas in 2011 and have since then really been kind of always working in the disability community, a lot with children with autism. And I spent about 12 years in Austin, and I just moved to New Orleans. Oh gosh, it's almost been a year now, to be closer to my family. So, my passion is very much like my work, but I always have to have my support, which is my family. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And you are like me, you like to talk and think and do your work for your spare time, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I feel like when people ask about hobbies, I'm like, oh wait, I am supposed to have something outside of, yeah,
Well, listen,
advocating for, yeah.
yeah, but listen, when your work is autistic children, it is endlessly number one, there are endless amounts of things to do and think about and learn and experience. And
Mhm.
it's so much fun. It's so
Absolutely.
good.
I feel like one of my favorite hobbies actually is to read. And I have to alternate what I read because otherwise I would just read strictly books about autism or memoirs or yeah. So I totally get that. And yeah, to your point, I'm just like, there's so much to learn. There's always new companies, new resources popping up. And in my job, like my day job is very much to help families of a new diagnosis get connected. So I'm always trying to, expand my knowledge about what's out there so that I can help families really feel supported post-diagnosis.
And so in your day job, yeah, walk us through that. So you're a social worker by training.
Social work by training, and I work at a hospital system here in New Orleans that is not associated with Quirky Buds as a disclaimer. But it is a developmental behavioral pediatric clinic, and so a lot of new autism diagnoses. And then we also do social skills, and we do a sex ed class for anybody with developmental disabilities. So that has been it's been really nice to be here in New Orleans in that way. I was at the developmental behavioral pediatric clinic in Austin for about 4 years. So it definitely feels similar, but also the resources and needs are different, Louisiana to Texas. So
Yeah, super interesting. And you know what? I'm already thinking we're gonna have you back for sex ed.
love, we'd be
And
happy to. Yeah, we're gonna
yeah,
go present our sex ed info in April at a conference too. So I'll have more stuff to share. Yeah.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. But so okay, you've got this day job, which is very demanding. I'm guessing.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot going on there, but it's good. Yeah.
And then in your spare time, you
Yes. In my spare
created
time, I started Quirky Buds, which is, I like to call it a side hustle, but then I'm always like, it's funny because I don't really make any money from it right now. So
yeah,
it's more like passion project.
yeah.
But I feel like it's bigger than that. I feel like it's bigger than a project. So I need something better to call it. If you have any ideas, let me know.
No, I have no idea.
Okay. But I started, but I started Quirky Buds. It'll be 2 years in April. After, like I mentioned, kind of working in this developmental disability space at the hospital in Austin and hearing just repeatedly from parents, do you know anyone that is my child's age who also likes, any sort of,
Elevators.
what'd you say?
Elevators.
Elevators, yes. And that kind of lives in Austin or lives nearby me. And I was always feeling so like my hands were tied because the answer was most of the time yes. With so many people coming into clinic and so many new diagnoses, but I wasn't allowed to share that information because of HIPAA. So I felt like, what am I going to do with this? It feels like such a huge need. And after COVID too, just this need for community and need for friendship felt really high, even personally, right? I think for everybody, it just felt like, man, you can't be alone. So I had reached out to a dating app and said hey, would y'all be willing to add on a side of neurodiverse needs or, friendship for this population. And they responded, no, thank you. But like, thanks for inquiring, something really basic. And I was like, okay. And then like, I was living in Austin, all these tech people around, I was asking everybody, like, would this be something you'd consider doing? And just hearing repeatedly how expensive that would be. So finally one day I was just like, you know what, I'll just do it. So I just like got on GoDaddy.com, bought a website, and Quirky Buds was kind of born. And it's still this like funny memory to me because I spent like probably, a very short period of time, and still to this day, it's pretty basic, right? It's like we use a Google form, and it goes into an algorithm, and I'll talk more about that. But essentially, within like 2 hours, I had like, a website. I had like, here's the form to sign up. And I like texted to my sister. I'm like, what do you think of this? And she responded like, well, that looks cool. What is that? And just have this funny memory of being like, oh, this is something I just did, and you think it's legit. So I didn't know as a social worker I would go into some tech, but here we
Into
are.
coding. That's
Yeah. All of a sudden I learned to code.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So you prop up, so families are asking you, hey, my kid needs friends. Do you know anybody who's also interested? And here's the thing, right? Autistic kids, by and large, many of them have interests that are not super common sometimes. Sometimes they
Totally.
are. Love soccer. I had a kid on my case that loves soccer, like Premier League, knows all the players, all the teams. That, go play soccer. Great. But elevators, slightly more difficult.
Slightly more difficult, yes. And I think that's a thing, when we think about friendship and in general, I was doing a little bit of like research around just friendship, right? Most of us connect with people based on interests, based on mutual, what they call it, mutual power, or like this like mutual give and take, and then also the ability to see someone regularly. And so really that's kind of what Quirky Buds was based on too, is the interest being like the driving factor around like, how are we going to make this connection? Because yes, to your point also, like I don't want to watch football personally, but I do want to watch, the new murder mystery documentary. And so usually I choose friends that want to do that with me, or like become closer with people that want to do those things with me. So really putting a heavy kind of focus on the interests. And I do think like if people are interested in signing up, that is something to note, because a lot of times people will sign up and put something like gaming. And that's great, but it's also very general. And so a lot of times, there's lots of different gaming, Minecraft, Roblox. I'm not a big gamer, so I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. Those are the two that come to mind. Mario Kart. Wait, I know that one. And so, what'd you say?
D&D.
D&D, exactly. So having like a little bit more specifics, I think, is really helpful in Quirky Buds, because then you can really get to kind of like somebody else that is interested in that. I did have somebody sign up. I thought this was like so beautiful. Someone signed up and said, my child loves to have other people watch him play Minecraft. And somebody else signed up and said, my child loves to watch people play Minecraft. And I was like, bam, that's exactly the point of this. So anyway, so yes, interest. And then we do kind of age, which is, I think is, sometimes our biological age is a little bit different than our mental age, but still, I think trying to not have like a 14-year-old with a 7-year-old. So we do by age, and then location, and people can opt for virtual friends if they want. But really trying to get like somebody who's within 10 to 20 miles so that you can meet them in person and have more repeated meetings.
This is amazing. Okay, so yeah, so not virtual. This is like
Not
a
virtual.
virtual application.
Yeah.
In-person meetup.
And you can do virtual friends if you want, because I understand, I taught social skills for a long time in Austin, and I understand that sometimes it's nerve-wracking to go in person. So having that virtual meeting is sometimes safer. That's fine. But yeah, we just launched Virtual Buds like about a year after we started, because I was really adamantly like, I don't want to do this. I want it to be in person. And the rest of my team members were like, no, it's time. So I lost that fight, but it's okay. More people are getting matched, and then more opportunity to make friends. So that's great.
This is the thing, right? You have to like start with what you think the people need, and then sometimes you give them,
and then pivot. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, one of the things that doing this platform, as you said, not a coder, and also I'm not on the spectrum or not neurodiverse. And so a lot of times I have changed a lot of things on the platform, hearing from people directly. So for example, early on, I had one form and I had adults tell me like, so I'd give examples of interests that people can check if they want, and then write in. And some of the interests I had adults tell me like, we don't want to see like bubbles or, you know, blocks, like that's not us. So changing the form so that there's one now for adults and one specifically for kids. And then we also had a bunch of parents reaching out about, you know, it'd be great to have a way to connect with other parents. So now there's a caregiver option as well, if you want to just meet another parent rather than like specifically have your child meet somebody.
This is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna just like slice it all out. So
Yes.
you service both adults and children. How
Yeah.
low do you go?
So right now we have the youngest is 2 and the oldest is 70. So all ages. And you know, it's funny too, because I think that it just goes to show, like I was saying at the beginning, like we all really need community and we all want people that are going to be kind of similar on our level or similar in terms of what they're interested in. So, you know, I love it when we get some like these wide age ranges because I'm like, this was the point. So yeah, any age is, yeah.
And this is really interesting. There's some really interesting research about like autistic communication, autistic play as
Mm-hmm.
being distinct from neurotypical play, neurotypical conversation. And so it becomes, what you're creating here is like a little culture bubble for neurodivergent individuals who are autistic, and that allows them to like choose, not have to work so hard, number one, not have to cross, communicate cross
I
culturally.
got you. Yeah.
I am a communication professional.
I am a speech
I
therapist.
am a speech therapist. And so like it just the like emotional load
Mm-hmm.
of knowing, for that 70-year-old, for example, who
Yeah.
we know for sure has spent most of their life having to navigate a world that doesn't make intuitive sense to them. Whether how
Yeah.
well they mask is like a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
Just for them to have like an authentic, unmediated, or to have the potential to have an authentic, unmediated, unmasked relationship,
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh my God, that's so amazing.
Well, and to your point too, I think there's this interesting right battle that as a provider or like as a social worker, I struggle with, right? Like we want to be inclusive, absolutely. We want to, you know, encourage kids to, or all people, right, to embrace neurodiversity. And there is this like idea that when it comes to close friendships, we want to be friends with somebody who's also had similar backgrounds to us. So like I always joke, like I'm from the Midwest. When I meet someone else from the Midwest, I'm immediately pumped. And it feels like kind of silly, but it is this moment of like, well, we kind of get each other on a different level than somebody, you know, from a different part of the country. And I think that's just similar in a lot of ways to, you know, somebody who is neurodiverse meeting somebody else who's neurodiverse and feeling this like, cool, you just get some of the things I've been through in a way that a neurotypical cannot.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Yeah.
is not the same thing as saying like all neurodivergent people are like best friends. That's not what we're
Right,
saying.
right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
So
that's all we're saying. Yeah.
so
And
we're
you know, it's
clear.
funny because in Quirky Buds, I don't ask people about their diagnosis. That's not a requirement. You don't have to have you don't have to say, yes, I've been officially diagnosed by this person, or here's what we have, right? And so a lot of times I have no idea, you know, and I have had a couple people sign up and say, like, I just want my child to have inclusive friends. And I'm like, that's great. Because I think to your point too, it's like creating this space where it's like, we're really trying to be safe around, we're going into this knowing the point is to make a friend, and the point is to make a friend around whatever interests that you share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this so much. Okay. So kids through adults, they find your website, they fill out a form.
Yes.
Okay.
And then and then a bunch of magic happens.
No.
No. And then basically what happens is myself and I have a team member, he's a volunteer who's amazing, who is more of a coder, to be honest. He takes it and basically has created, with the helpful use of AI, a very easy way to kind of match folks. So that kind of spits out our matches for the week. So we do it every week, so you only get an email once a week that says like, you know, hey Johnny, here's your matches for the week. And basically then you can opt to email those people and say like, hey, and we also say like, here's the shared interest that you have. So that way, you know, you can start the conversation by saying like, I see we both love elevators, you know, let's go from there. But yeah, so that's like kind of the basics of it. And I always forget to mention, and I should be saying this like at the beginning every time, it's free for anyone to use. And that's something I feel like I forget to say, and then people are like, how much does it cost? I'm like, no, oh shoot, I should be like saying that from the beginning. But yeah, it's free, and basically we're doing a lot of work right now to try to become a nonprofit in order to like get a grant. But in the meantime, we all feel very strongly that, you know, there's a lot of apps out there right now to make friends. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of apps to date that feel like, okay, we shouldn't have to be charging people to do this. So we're still operating totally free of charge. And that's the plan for forever, in my opinion. As long as I'm involved, which hopefully is forever. Yeah. Yeah.
So where is Quirky Buds operating now?
Great question. We are currently in like 41 states, and there's one teeny tiny bud in I don't actually know if they're not teeny tiny, sorry. They're like a teenager, but I just so I say one teeny bud in the UK. And it's funny, I have a sister that lives in the UK, so I kind of think that's how that person heard about us. But there's no other buds in the UK. So, but yeah, we're in 41 states. We're still, you know, are growing, so we're still under 1,000 buds right now. Our goal is to hit 1,000 buds by summer. So it still is like slow growing, but in terms of, you know, matches, our match rate is about 75% last I looked. So if you do sign up, the chances that you get somebody, you know, whether it's virtual or in person, is pretty likely at some point. So we
And
feel really good about that.
the more people join, the higher
Yeah.
that rate goes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the more people join in your area, like I mentioned at the beginning, I lived in Texas for so long that I will say a large majority of buds are in Texas. However, there's a bunch in Maryland, there's a bunch in Colorado. And like I said, there's literally some in 41 states. So they're everywhere. It's just a matter of, yeah, getting the word out to try to increase in certain areas for sure.
I love the way you talk about them. You talk about the buds.
Yeah, the buds.
Well, and I love it for several reasons, and I love the name for several reasons, because there's no pathology around quirk. Right?
Yeah.
Someone who's quirky is delightful, right? Like
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very signaling in, like, I just find the name super obvious and signaling of the way that you're thinking about the whole thing, which I think permeates the whole experience for people. And also, like, it's gender neutral, it's age neutral, right? Like it's not patronizing.
Well, it's also funny because I use the word bud pretty frequently. And so like I always call my dog Bud. I like greet people like, what's up, Bud? And so when I was thinking of the name too, a lot of my friends were like, oh, that makes sense that you did that. But I love it, but I call them the buds too, because I love it when people sign up. Parents especially will write it, like there's a open-ended, you can write other things if you want to share. And parents will write like, my bud loves, and refer to them as their bud, which I also just like that, because I'm like, it's a nice also like, you know, reference point. And to your point, yeah, it's not it's gender neutral. It's very just kind of like my little bud. So yeah.
There's so much about the disability world that is ableist and you know, patronizing and like pathologizing, and yes, okay, healthcare, and there's a role for that and all of that, but this is not that. And I just love
Right.
you have like figured out how to thread the needle of like, yeah, I've got my hospital job, like HIPAA,
Yeah.
but this is how I want to like help people most.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think, as a person that's like moved around a little bit too, just friendship is it's hard work, first of all. It's not like an easy thing to do. And I think, for somebody who in social skills groups, when I've heard that like it's been unsuccessful for people, it just feels like, it can be really a shot to yourself. I mean, friendship affects everything, right? Your self-esteem, your overall health, your confidence. I mean, those things kind of all roll together, but just the idea of like giving somebody back a little bit of control in that also feels like something that I wish I would have had moving to a new city and trying to figure out like, okay, how could I find somebody who's like me nearby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meetups can do that, like meetup.com.
Yeah, meetups,
again,
yeah,
there's
totally.
any
And
number of
Facebook, like Facebook groups and stuff. But yeah, one of the things that I always say about Quirky Buds too is it's private, meaning that like you aren't going to, Gabrielle, all of a sudden like be blasted on Facebook in a certain group. So like once you sign up, you're in the system and you're gonna receive an email, but you're not going to, nobody else is gonna necessarily know that you're in there. Yeah.
it's a closed ecosystem
Exactly.
with
Yeah.
some protection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is important because we do know,
Yeah, it's
there are
hard. And also, I think, people ask me about safety a lot when it comes to this. And I always tell them, like, well, it's about safety kind of whenever you meet anybody online. But at the same time, because we are still kind of threading this through AI, I have a cousin who I call her my intern, but she's just she's my helper in a lot of ways and a lot of things with Quirky Buds. She's amazing. But she and I will review kind of all of the submissions. And so a lot of times there have been some, not a lot, but I'll say less than 10 that have been kind of like, is this person actually interested? Is this like, some sort of bot? What's going on? And so then we'll just email them directly, like, thanks for signing up. Are you actually interested in this? And every single time we've done that, we have not gotten a response. And so then we just remove them from the platform. Which, we may miss somebody at some point, but we try to really also do our best to say like, okay, this is a safe program. And we want to make sure that when people sign up, they sign a terms and conditions that also says, they're using it for the intention that it's supposed to be.
right.
Yeah.
Can you give us like an example of like a
Of a match?
Yes.
Yeah. So my favorite one, and it's on our social media. And I use this example a lot because it was so unprompted. And so it totally made my year, I feel like, since I'm still talking about it. But I had a parent email me out of the blue. I think they're in Maryland, and say their child is 14, I believe. I don't have my social media in front of me, but their child was 14 and had gotten matched with somebody who also likes US presidents and history. And it was like the first time that had happened for them. And the parent, like both sets of parents were excited, but also the kids were so excited to be able to talk about US history at 14. Which to me felt so like, this is the reason we're doing this. It's like highlighting the interest and also just feeling very successful, and kind of getting back some of that confidence of like, okay, I can go into a social situation and feel, like it was fun and I got to talk about something I'm interested in.
For people who, because you mentioned social skills several times, and they get a bad.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I was thinking in my head like 5 minutes ago that I did want to circle back to this.
Good. Because there's no good language to, and there are many social skills groups that are like social training.
Yes.
And it's ew.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about that. So talk about.
Yeah, what I was thinking about too, because when I was doing a little bit of research in terms of just social skills, right? When I was prepping for this other conversation a couple weeks ago, but essentially really reading about how social skills, when we quote unquote teach social skills, like you're talking about, that doesn't usually translate to friendships. that maybe translates to feeling, you know, a little bit more secure, or maybe it translates to quote unquote more success in social situations. But ultimately, there is no transfer of quality friendships. And so realistically, that's really not that helpful. And I think, you know, to your point earlier about having somebody who's, or as we were talking about, having somebody just that's like understands where you're coming from. One of the things that even in social skills in my current day job, when we have those groups, that we feel like is the most successful is having a small group where teenagers with any sort of neurodiverse, you know, thinking can get together and really feel in a space where they're understood and can speak their mind and can get feedback from peers, as opposed to really being like, you know,
When
here's
you meet a person, you should
right.
take their hand and
And
look
look them
into
in the
their
eye.
eye.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I do think, yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. I'm glad you brought it back up, because I was like, it is something that I also think parents often ask about really early in my experience. They'll ask about, where can my child get social skills at like 6 years old? And I'm like, let's just like get some like successful, you know, social experiences and not have this be like they have to be acting in a certain
Well, and
way.
this is what this is kind of the lens through which I wanted to highlight this, which is when we take neurodivergent individuals and we teach them how to socialize like neurotypical individuals, we've missed the mark
Totally.
completely. And so I really want to stress this, like there's emerging research on this, I think, which is, again, when we pair neurodivergent individuals with other neurodivergent individuals with similar interests, now we settle the nervous system, we get things moving smoothly, and then that quirky bud is experiencing social success. Well, guess what happens when you experience success? You beget more success. So
Sure.
now what starts off as I play Minecraft with this one person continues into, oh, but this kid who sits next to me in class has a Minecraft sticker on his laptop. Like, maybe I'll ask him about it.
Yep.
Right. And so I've been talking about this analogy a lot. It's like our neurodivergent kids, all of us really, all brains are like rubber bands. They have a set point.
Yep.
And some rubber bands are really, really tight and some rubber bands are really, really loose, but everybody can expand
Expand.
rubber band a little bit. But if you expand a rubber band too much or too fast, it'll snap.
Yep.
So what you've created here with Quirky Buds is a nice little rubber band expander.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great analogy. And because to your point, right, it's like that whole experience is like when we talk about what the benefits of friendship, what the research says about that in terms of like, yeah, self-esteem, or, you know, all the things that come along with friendship. It's like that we're not talking about a quick hi, how are you? We're talking about deep friendships that impact those things. And if you're not able to connect with somebody, or you don't feel like you're feeling like it's work when you're with that person, and even as neurotypical, I have friends like that where I'm like, wow, I just left that and my energy is drained. That doesn't boost, like, you know, give you kind of the good juju from friendship that you're looking for. So yeah, I think to your point, like the fact that when we're trying to teach social skills in this way that is neurotypical, it's like when you said we missed the mark, I'm like, yeah, we're missing it.
We
It's
just
like the
shouldn't
mark
do
isn't
it.
even nearby.
Yeah. No, we should not do it anymore. I mean, I don't know. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, definitely. Yeah.
if
Agreed. But yeah,
people if people want to find out more about Quirky Buds, what should they do?
yes. And I was just looking to see, I was like looking through my notes to make sure if there's anything else I wanted to tell
Yeah,
you.
and also if there's anything else you want to tell me.
Okay, we're in 41 states. I said that. Okay. Yeah, so if they want to find us, I mean, they can just go to quirkybuds.com. We're also on Instagram at Quirky Buds handle, and Facebook with a Quirky Buds. We don't have a TikTok, which, you know, I don't have a TikTok. I don't anyway. And they can message us through the website, or my email is just caroline@quirkybuds.com. I'm always happy to talk with folks. And yeah, I think, you know, one of the things too, moving forward, like I said, we would love to hear directly from people who are using the platform, but also who people are like, this is not working. This is not something I'm interested in for X, Y, or Z. You know, feedback is really important in that way.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Caroline, I'm so happy that you came to talk to us
Thank
about
you
this
for
today.
having me. This was fun. I feel like it's like just an easy kind of, support, and also just talking about some of the other things that come along with complicated kids, in terms of, finding resources outside of the usual. Yeah.
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 And I love that you're out here. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.